We're tilling it like it is, where research meets the county biz. From leadership to market trends, to how to talk to bankers and make new friends. Yeah, we're tilling it like it is, bringing knowledge through the rifts. If it helps your farm, your school, or your kids, you'll hear it here, no politics.
I'm Area Pecan Agent in Southeast Georgia, and today we're going to talk about pruning trees. Specifically, this is an orchard where the trees are in their third growing season. And I would actually argue the pruning here and in third and fourth year is as critical as any pruning. However, year 1, 2, and 3 are all very critical and different from each other. But in year 3, you have the opportunity to really set this tree on the right growing path, if you will. Trees where pruning is missed here, it's hard to go back and redo it, okay? So we're standing by this tree, but what I would like to share is actually your first 3 years of pruning on one tree. So if you could see, and the reason is we got a visual, but if you could see right here, this was the first cut that was made 2 years ago. Plant it, you cut it off, and don't be scared where you cut it. If in that first year of growth, there's no deer damage and it is not growing well, that's coming from the transplant stress. So guess what the answer is? You come back and you cut it lower. And that's allowing that tree to get water, okay? So these trees grew fine, and most of them are, you know, the width of them is growing really good. That's how, to me, you can really tell they're growing well. And so this height ended up being perfect.
Does variety play a role in how tall we need to actually grow the tree?
It does not.
Or prune the tree, sorry.
It does not. So it'll be the same for every variety.
Gotcha.
And probably something that'll throw you for a loop is in the nursery. If you buy a tree that was only grown 1 year in the nursery, it's going to be real small, almost like a toothpick. Many of the trees come out of the nursery are at least 2 years. So that gives those trees more width and they're taller. But what my message is when that tree is taller, coming out of the nursery, and sometimes even thick, still cut it right at about chest, neck high. So yeah, that number 4 foot doesn't have to be specific. It just needs to be low enough that those few roots that are left can pull that water up. And then when you go to the second year, so here's your first year. If you look, the second year isn't much taller, okay? So in the first year, you're going to have, the tree's going to grow like a small bush, just straight out like this. And you're going to have a few branches almost similar to this, but it's going to be lower. So for second year pruning, the easiest way to think of it is pick one of those branches. That is the central leader. So pick one branch, cut everything else off, and then tip it one more time, tip. So that first year pruning was tipping that entire thing. In the first year when this tree was planted, the entire top was cut off, and it was cut off right here. And that's why you could still see it. And you can also see about how tall it is. This is probably the most perfect height you can cut a tree, which is about chest high. The reason we cut them chest high is because the stress of this tree at planting is trying to move water up to all of the top growth. So if we plant this tree and we leave it as tall as you got it out of the nursery, when the spring comes, you will never move up the water to get to the top. Why? Because our root system has essentially been pruned and set back from the transplant. So when this tree is set in the ground, you cut it straight off about 4 feet high. Well, what about a tree that's over 10 feet tall out of the nursery? Well, guess what? The answer still remains chest high. Because the taller the tree is out of the nursery, the more wood the water has to go up. So essentially, you want to cut a taller tree back further, and a shorter tree wouldn't need to be cut back as far. So that's why if you stick to chest high for every single tree, you actually end up doing it right across the board.
Now, what about chest high? What if people are different heights, right, Andrew? So when you say
Yeah,
chest high, can you give like a foot estimate just in case somebody's super
4
tall?
feet, yeah.
4 feet. Okay.
I'll say this, there's going to be one more comment and question. They're going to say, well, what about deer? So for first year trees and sometimes second year, deer can be a problem. And obviously it's unpredictable. And so some people will plant new trees and cut them head high, 6 feet, 5 to 6 feet. And that helps with the deer. What you will see is those trees do not grow as good as a tree cut low. But if deer are a problem, they go after the very new tissue. And that's because when everything in the woods has gotten more green, they're coming to our trees, which bud break later. And a low cut tree, they'll hammer it essentially. They'll just come back and feed on, they'll actually feed on the same trees. And so there's a lot of deer repellent, Milorganite, there's hinder, there's different things that you can use. Some people do soap, and you hang it from the tree. And what we've seen, not in research, but more observation, is what you hang on that tree does a pretty good job, because they come right up to it, and if it bothers their nose, that's as close as you get. You can put stuff on the ground, but it doesn't seem to last as long. I have seen a few places where deer are so bad that pruning them high was the best option. So it's definitely out there, but between 4 feet, honestly, less is okay. The tree is not hurt by you cutting it low, okay? But again, we're still referring to first year. The second year of pruning is selecting one branch, and it almost doesn't matter what branch. I would go with the thickest branch. The tree is still too young to, it's gonna straighten itself up, all right? Then you wanna tip it. The reason for tipping that second year pruning goes back to root and shoot growth. So the research shows that the tree puts on more root growth before it does shoot growth. So the tree doesn't put out significant lateral shoots until about the 4th year. So it spends those first 4 years growing roots. So that's why it's better to keep these trees shorter and let a lot of the energy be put into the ground. And at the 3rd year, just to give you an idea, to help put this in your mind, at the 3rd year growth of a tree, the root growth has extended as far out as the tree is tall. So for the first 2 years, the first year the root growth doesn't go out much at all. The second year it starts moving out. But in the 3rd year, so after the 3rd growing season, the roots are as far out as the tree is tall. In the 4th year, the tree will outgrow the roots again, essentially. But you're going to have a lot of growth coming out, and it's going to be down lower like this. And you're going to have a bunch of limbs. So you're going to select one limb. You're going to cut all the other limbs off completely, all the way down that tree. And then this one branch that's coming out, you're going to top it. That's how you do second year pruning. So honestly, I'm barely tall to count these. But another reason I want to count these is because this is basically a crow's foot. So Blake, if you shine up and you look at the top, which one is the central leader? What's going to happen if you don't remove these, then these are going to compete with that one, and they're going to grow out to the side, and they're going to shade the interior where we want the sun to lay on those flat. All right, so in trees in the younger age, loppers are really the easiest thing to use, and there's different types. And so the reason I keep these is because I have something at the house that can sharpen that. I keep them pretty sharp, but these you got to keep sharp, okay? This one I brought because we might do some central leaders that are high. This tree is not high, but this would only be good for probably about second year trees if they're tall. But I'm hoping I don't have to use it because they're not as strong. But if a pole saw, chainsaw is good for once you get up to 3 and 4 years old. So this kind of my replica of that.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you.
All right, so now we're getting to actually doing this. So first year, second year, what do we do for the 3rd year? Remember, we planted, we tipped it off. In the 2nd year, we selected one branch and we tipped it again. Why? Because we want more roots to grow. In the 3rd year, the biggest thing is we do not want to tip the leading branch. So the first thing is we want to select the leading branch. So we call it the central leader. This is a classic example of a crow's foot. So when you tip that, the auxin, this is a hormone and these terminal buds, when you tip it right here, it stops that auxin, and then all these lateral branches grow kind of wacky. And that's what makes it grow like a bush. When we do not tip this, the oxen will control the growth of these lateral branches. So when I select a central leader, I like looking at the wood and saying, okay, what goes through here? Well, to me, all 3 or maybe 4 of these, they're about the same.
Right.
And so if you want to look at this spot, a lot of people say, if I cut a certain branch, it'll grow sideways. No, the tree will actually grow back over that cut. And this one is already doing that here. So keep that in mind. I would rather you select a leader where it looks like you got a good path of wood growing through. And also, I like what's thicker. To me, these 2 are the same.
Yep.
And I'm not going to complicate it. I'm
Yep.
standing on this side. So I'm just going to pick that other one as my central leader.
Boom.
Yeah, it's done. The easiest thing to do is just select your central leader and cut everything else off and start over at a twig. And I'm going to show you the benefit of that. So do it like this. And once you select your central leader, don't think a lot about it. Just get the cut. The one thing about pruning, however many people you have out there, that's the opinions you'll have. So if you stick to the basics,
can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong. So right here is where I want to stop.
Okay.
But in a second year tree, we're gonna tip it somewhere in there. But if I tip this tree, even if I tipped it up here, guess what? I'm gonna have a crow's foot right here next year, and it's gonna be higher. So how are you gonna cut all that out all over again? You can't. So you eventually got to stop with the tipping, and this tree, this will be our leading branch, and the oxen here will control the lateral branch growth. So it'll lay those branches flatter. That flat branch will pick up more sunlight. The whole purpose of the pruning is for structure of this growth. So we like a straight up tree. It's called a central leader method.
That's awesome.
Pruning this is interesting about the timing of pruning. You can actually do it anytime and not be wrong. But probably the best time is winter, because without the leaves on the tree, I can see these branches and I can find a structure that I like for this tree. You know, if I remove a lot of branches in the summer down here, it actually will encourage top growth. But the reason we don't talk about that a lot is because it goes back to, what are the trees doing? They are putting more into the roots those first few years than they're putting into the shoots. So growing a fast tree is not getting us a fruit crop. We're not harvesting nuts any sooner than growing it faster. So it's better to have a good structured tree, and that people a lot of time now thinking of storms. And even without the hurricane, a lot of straight line winds go through places like this and will take down trees. So where we lose control of these fork type branches, those are the branches that split. So we're better off to just cut them and get a good central leader for the future of any kind of winds and stuff like that. Here's one that's like, this is so simple. You got 3 leaders that was pruned here last year, and there ain't much of a crow's foot, so I want to select one. But you know, here I like to select the one that's thicker.
Thickest, yeah.
I think it's got a better chance of being a part of this, you know, and so I come up and I made that determination walking up to the tree. I didn't get up here and think much about it. Pruning, I think the best pruning is done 2 ways. Sometimes you got to stand up to that tree and see, but other time you stand back. You can see more standing back. So when I'm finished there, I'm not going to tip it. So a lot of this pruning, 3-year pruning and just going back to sticks is not a bad thing. And a lot of people say, oh man, what are we gonna, there's no branches. We had a branch there. All these are your branches. And now with the tip, the oxen in that terminal bud, it can control the growth of these lateral branches. So some will ask about, do we take buds off? That's in the book. It's not our main focus. That's why we don't talk a lot about it. Kind of doesn't matter that much. And so I virtually leave them alone. Now I'll say this, next year, there are going to be some branches growing down here that are below our head. So for 4-year pruning, if there's a split, try to take out the split, but take off every branch below your head after the 4th year. Can those branches grow now? Yes, no problem, because every branch that grows today is going to supply some food, carbohydrates for the roots this year. So let it grow, let it do it at once. But in the 4th year, we can come into that branch and take all of them off, and then after that, you're really done. So I always say year 1, 2, 3, and 4, and after that, let them go.
Now, what about if you have injuries? So, like you talked about keeping your tools very sharp, right?
Yep.
So, what happens if those tools are kind of dull and like you actually end up ripping some of the branches as you're trying to prune them off? What do we have to take into account when it comes to injury for the pecan trees?
I'll say this: when they're young, trees don't heal; they seal.
Yep.
So when they're young, they have the ability to kind of grow over, like these two that I cut off. It could now will grow over that. But the bigger the tree gets, the older it gets, the more difficult it is for it to take care of that.
Yep.
And so when we're having to come out with chainsaws, the best we can do is take off lower limbs, but that upper part is set. And if you're not getting any sunlight up there in the upper part, it's just, that's the way it's going to be.
Something that we've started hearing a lot about in recent years has been hedging. Can you just briefly go over hedging in some of these older trees?
Yes, hedging is a kind of a new cultural practice that we're getting into, and it's been looked at for a long time now in Georgia. It was already being done out west, but all in all, for us in the Southeast, we do see it as a great benefit, and it comes for a number of reasons. We don't see a yield increase, that's something we need to think about because we need the yield. But we do see a nut quality increase, and that is something that will help us. Hedging also does not reduce our disease because the disease is number one pest that we fight, especially in terms of what we spend in money. But it does allow us to control the disease better, and I'm referring to scab, because when we hedge, we're actually reducing the top growth and we're hedging the sides. So we're reducing the size of the tree from top down, and then we're cutting the branches off with a hedger about 6 feet off the tree, 8 feet off the tree. And each tree is not hedged every single year. So I'll mention the program in just a minute, but just sticking to the benefits. When you cut all that off, that wood off, then you're able to get our fungicide can contact the pecans on the tree that need that protection. So that's a big thing for disease. Another thing is kind of indirect is fruit thinning. So all nut crops have that alternation. It's a natural. And in pecan, there is a difference in variety. Some varieties alternate real bad. Some don't alternate as much, but there is some alternation. So all the cultural things we do, like irrigate, that's big to reduce alternation. So the tree sets that crop in August of each year. So the female flower that becomes a pecan is determined physiologically in the month of August. And so whatever less stress on that tree it has, the better crop we set. So where hedging plays is there is also a carbohydrate store. So that's the most basic understanding of alternation. If there's a lot of pecans this year, all the energy goes into making those, and then there's none the next year. Well, there's where the hedging comes. So instead of going and shaking every tree in July with the shaker and knocking nuts off the tree to reduce it, that's fruit thinning, the hedger takes care of that. And that wood, that branch, that exact piece of wood that's hedged is not cut every single year. We were doing it every other year. All right, but the newest change as of 2024 probably is we're pushing it to every 4th year. And that's because we do got some high plant population trees. If you see, our trees are these are not too close by any means, but you see how they're a little closer in the row inside the drill than they are from the row. This is actually so they can be hedged. And with the hedging, it can reduce that alternation. And so we're every 4th year on that branch. So you can either hedge this whole row in every 4th year, or what a lot of people like to do is do the middles. So you'll hedge that side of this tree and then this side of that tree, and then you'll skip the 2nd year, and then the 3rd year you'll do this side and the other middles. We call it the middle and every other middle. And if our trees are not too close together, we can hedge every other year, but again, that fruiting wood has to grow back, then it's going to produce a crop. So that's the only change we got from 2020, like right now, than when it first started becoming a more normal practice. But most orchards being planted today are planted for the purpose of, like, we're going to hedge.
To clarify, what age trees will be hedged?
Yes, that's a good question. So if we're 35 feet across, we're looking at probably somewhere around your 8, 10, we might can go to 12, at least in 40, I know in 40. But if we're 30 and less, especially right here in the drill, you're looking at about the 7th year that they need to start. It comes a lot faster. So the closer those trees, your hedging program is going to need to start sooner. And I'll say one thing about the pruning and hedging. You know, hedging is pruning, but it's hedging. Hedging is a type of pruning. So it just cuts off every branch. It's like your shrubs around your house. We didn't know how our trees would respond in Southeast, but Dr. Wells has looked at this, and the horticulture has looked at this since about 2013. And talking about hedging and pruning, all right, and talking about hedging and pruning, some say, if I'm going to hedge, is there any point in doing all this pruning? That is a really good question. And probably maybe there's a way to separate that and research it. There are some that have tried that.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, especially in tight plantings, and I know that one in a 25-25, which is very close. It's more close than we recommend, but there are some doing it. The unpruned trees, y'all, were splitting on their own before they even got to being hedged. They were growing so fast. Now, part of that was they had a lot of inputs, but one benefit of tree pruning is slowing that down. So the tree will self-prune if it's starting to grow too much, and in that crowded environment, super crowded. So a lot of the orchards are planted with hedging in mind, but our position is they should still be pruned. So hedging reduces all that canopy, and you get that sunlight in the canopy. So that's another positive for hedging, is the sunlight, which we don't think a lot about. It's hard to put that in a number, you know, but these trees got to have sunlight. However, the structure of this tree in its early years, like first 10 years and even 15, it does help this tree to still be pruned with structure before you hedge it. So it's still going to grow back out, and it's going to, you know, look like a normal tree. But when you go to hedging, it can reduce pruning. Even if you hedge, still reduces some self-pruning of itself, or splits due to wind shear, hurricane winds.
When you're pruning, so like an older tree like this one, what are some of the branches? What are you looking at? Which branches are we looking at chomping off?
Trees above 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It is very difficult to go in and do anything with them pruning wise.
Gotcha.
So what I would do, I would focus mainly on lower branches. So I would go back to that 4th year, which is, and 3rd year too, which is head high and down.
Yep.
But mostly in the 4th year. So you could take this one off, and then all these down here, this one back here. You know, if this one's growing real straight up that I'm looking at into the sun, you could do something with it. But what you got to remember, if you cut too much of this off, the bark is getting thick up top.
Yep.
So there may not be no buds up there to form a new branch. But I can look up and see some buds. So it probably would. But that's the downside. Once you get over 6 years, it's kind of hard to, I would say, fix them. You just may make them a little better.
Now, when we're looking at these branches, so to speak, Andrew, if somebody accidentally pruned off, let's say this branch, for instance, is there too big of a branch to prune off where the tree won't heal back?
I say yes, but not in much of these trees in our lifetime that we'll deal with.
Gotcha.
Yes, and that's only, honestly, I've learned that from an arborist who cuts down all kinds of trees.
Yep.
And I did not believe you could remove a branch too large, but he has shown me some trees, particularly oak, that once you get to a certain size, they don't seal very well. But in our world of the growing of these trees, we don't usually get like that. They'd have to be like, you know, the 50 plus, 60-year-old, and by that time you've either hedged these and all that, it doesn't matter.
Gotcha.
So this is not too much. Again, what my concern here is do you have the replacements on the inside?
Yep.
You may not grow back what you take.
So when you're talking about buds,
Yeah,
on the branch, can you point out a few of them?
yeah, like here's one that's kind of hiding there, and then here's one right here. And the pecans have 3 in one, so it's primary, secondary, tertiary. And the point is, once your bark starts getting like this bud may break, but see, it's probably not going to produce. This branch is so big, it's mostly growing that way.
Right.
So I don't think, you know, we're moving on these big ones. If you look straight up on this main trunk, if you go, your eyes go way up there, you see a lot of them. But I don't know that you're replacing a lot of that in this 6 to 10 foot area. That's my concern.
Gotcha.
But generally in a tree like this, if you're going to do anything to it, just remove your lower limbs and just kind of let the rest be. And here's another thing, if you're hedging, so if the grower comes back and hedges, then he's going to be cutting these branches 6 feet off the tree that way. So he's actually going to remove those tips. So actually it'll end up bringing in that sunlight.
Man, hitting us with all the pecan knowledge today, Andrew.
Hey there, Blake Carter here. Thank you so much for watching today's episode on pruning young pecan trees. Getting those early cuts right is one of the most important investments you can make in your pecan orchard. So next time you have to pick up those shears, have no fear, because this video hopefully gave you all the necessary skills and confidence that you need to prune your pecan trees appropriately. We appreciate everyone tuning in, whether you've got a backyard pecan tree or you're managing a commercial orchard. Stick around for a few bloopers from this episode. Because apparently I can talk about central leaders and scaffold angles all day, just not always in one take, and so does Andrew. So enjoy that and try to pick out the cute special guest that Savannah played with during the episode. If there's another topic you'd like us to cover, fertilizer timing, disease management, variety selection, drop those in the comments below. We definitely read those. They help us decide what's coming next. Make sure you like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and share it with someone who's got young pecan trees that might need a little bit more help. And until next time, keep telling it like it is.
Sorry, I might have to make an editing. Yes.
On site, telling it like it is, on location. Now, when it comes to pruning this tree, Savannah, what are you doing?
That rose Cape Fear. All right.
Yep.
Thank you. Because they ain't gonna know until we say it, and we'll take that part out.
Well, you on the video now.
Well, assuming that could be edited, but this dog named it this one, this dog named it that one. They didn't know until I said it was wrong.
That's right. Marcy had no idea that we were talking about the wrong pecan tree. She is perfectly happy.
She loves those inner pecans because I heard her over there cracking.
And I don't know about them two,
Let's
but
do.
one of them's liking the branch too. I don't know. Maybe he's helping prune.
We're tilling it like it is, where research meets the county biz. For leadership to market trends, to how to talk to bankers and make new